Live, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing? So people have already been asking questions on the chat, so we can already go off of that. We don't have to stall this time, so that's good.
There's a chat.
Oh yes, there's a chat. I can send you the link to the pop-up thing here. So this will.
I see it.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for doing the stream. It's always a pleasure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, let's get to it.
let's get into the juicy stuff.
Oh yeah. All right, let's see. So I promised people on Instagram and Reddit that I'd get to their questions first, so I'm going to start with that. Hash. So there's two questions here, which should be pretty straightforward. First of all, are you working on a deck? Which is,
I am not working on a deck.
Maybe. I wonder if the fact that you posted on Reddit 2 days ago David's article about how you shouldn't be making decks.
I mean, a while ago I wanted to, not as like a way to make money, but just like as a design kind of exercise.
Right.
Me and Mads wanted to collaborate and do like some kind of graphic shapy deck, but that just kind of never came to fruition. And from what I heard, it takes a lot of work to make a good deck.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine so. And also, it's the market is pretty brutal. There's already a lot out there.
It's pretty saturated, yeah.
Yep. There's still like on the subreddit in particular, there's a bunch of people who still are like, hey, here's my design. You know, what do you think of it? And people are like, well, it's not.
You should have put a bit more work into that, bro. Is often my reaction.
Yeah, and I mean, usually I'm sure they put a lot of work, but it's just because an actual deck of cards put like a lot of work.
Yeah, not to mention you need like, I don't know, like some pretty good taste to make something that has some wide appeal to people besides yourself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, it helps to have a standing in the community. You know, Zach made Fontaine's work also because, you know, he was doing the whole Theory 11 thing and whatnot, and so that obviously had to help.
Yeah, I don't really think it's possible to have a successful deck unless you yourself aren't successful in the community.
Yeah, yep, I agree. So yeah, so no deck. Not thinking of any decks in particular right now.
Well, on the down low, I do have a little A something.
Yes, I'm a big fan of those A people. It's quality deck. Anyways, in terms of the Instagram questions, there's also Ethan Butler is wondering when you plan on releasing the Prism tutorial, assuming that you're planning on making a Prism tutorial.
I should have mentioned that in the pre-chat that was like one of the off-limit topics.
Okay.
No, just like I've been getting that question for years, and you'd think they would have made one by now, because, you know, just so people would stop asking. But it's one of those moves that it has a lot of nuances and subtleties that, like, it would really take a lot of effort to teach and teach well, because I wouldn't want to teach it like just halfway and see people continue to just like do the spin and then drop it, you know.
That's my preferred strategy, but you know.
Yeah, but eventually, once I'm like done with school and can carve out a nice chunk of time, I'll like find some good equipment and maybe collaborate with some people to do it, just as far as production goes, because I don't have many means of production right now.
Yeah, this is pretty similar to what happened with Antoine and Squall. People were asking him for a tutorial left and right, and he eventually came up with one when Cardistry Touch did pack with him, which is
yeah, it's so sweet, because not everyone can afford, nor do they need to buy like all this really amazing equipment or get like a ton of editing experience when they can just like outsource that to people who've been doing that and can do it really well.
Yeah, because there's also a lot of technical work in the post production that makes a difference between like a decent tutorial and a good tutorial and stuff like that.
Exactly. So when I have the opportunity to get my hands on some people that can help me with those things, and when I have some time, that's when it'll happen.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Soon.
I asked the ever quoted soon. Yeah. Oh yes. So someone is asking on the Reddit, a shuffler 6900, is asking if you have any advice to people who are participating in ICO.
Don't hold back.
Oh,
like definitely don't hold back. I've seen that in like a few competitions, like in the early stages, people just, I don't know if they necessarily try to save the material for later on or something, but you gotta go like full tilt early on.
Yeah.
Try to stay at that pace. And like just being honest, if you can't like go like full tilt throughout the whole thing, there's gonna be someone else who can, and they're probably gonna be one of the people that win.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And it's the thing that happened with Zui, right? He went all out and showed off all his material, which got him through the first couple of rounds, and then he just created the rest.
Yeah, and like honestly, the judges and I, we mentioned quite a few times in the critiques that like we wanted to see more from him than just like stuff we've seen before, Mocking God, etc. And yeah, he
he delivered.
He definitely did. Yeah. So that's like the kind of performance that you need to bring. You need to like drop all your material in the first few rounds and then make more material for the next rounds, or you've just got to have like a few years worth of good material that you've been stockpiling like I did.
Yeah, or Daniel was doing that as well. He had just a short amount of stuff that he had been doing at all, and that worked out pretty well for him as well. But right, so basic idea: don't hold back. I can definitely relate to the feeling of, well, I can't do this now because I need to use it later. But the thing is that if you can't get through this round, then you can't get to you can't use your material in the next round.
Yeah, exactly.
So the cost benefit,
it's a bit of a conundrum.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a hard call to make, but usually putting it more early is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and also like just like show off like everything you have that you consider decent, even if it's not necessarily polished all the way. Which I mean seems a bit contradictory, but like
right.
if it's creative enough, it'll look good in the eyes of the judges, I think, usually.
Yeah, those little moves. There's like a lot of things that kind of raise your eyebrow, but don't feel like finished moves. But they seem pretty appropriate in a competition where you're trying to show off how creative you are, etc.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So that's actually all there was between the Reddit and Instagram. So we can move on to some of the other questions. So Troublemaker asked a bunch of questions, so beware. So first of all, this is about your creative process. And he asks, Andrew, do you usually think of a shape and try to make it come to life with cards, or do you usually just mess around until you find a good structure?
Really, for the most part, I have a shape in mind or some idea with the shape, and then I try to make it work.
Right.
Like for Chevron, I got inspiration from this wire sculpture that was at my school that looked like a bunch of like distorted cubes stacked on one another. And I was like, oh, if those are like collapsed, like I could potentially form that out of cards. So like I had the idea, and from there I like reverse engineered it to see like where I could fit my fingers to make it work. And then same thing for expanding triangle. Like I had that idea for a really long time, but
Oh yeah.
like I wasn't able to make it work right just because I hadn't thought of like having cards that weren't in contact with my fingers at all. Like
Right.
I was always thinking like I had to find some kind of grip that would allow me to like have control of all the packets simultaneously.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so is the breaking point using their thumb as raising the card on one of the sides? That makes any sense?
I think actually like that was part of it, and then like putting that together with like using that to pull out the one of the top cards, which isn't in contact with your fingers at all.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And also doing it upside down instead of like
Oh, the
point
other
side
way.
up,
Right. Yeah, I could see how you could get.
which is how I had been trying to do it previously.
Oh, that seems like a lot more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this move for a while, which was like a shrinking triangle, in which I farrowed the cards and then made a triangle and pushed them together to make
Ah, yes.
to give the illusion of like a shrinking triangle. So, together, but Dimitri and Antoine were like, it's kind of anticlimactic because you're going
Right.
from a large shape to a small shape, which I agreed with. So I worked on trying to do something the other way.
Right.
Like it's kind of impossible to do that like with a pharaoh because there's too much friction and not enough fingers really.
Yeah, you can't really do an anti-pharaoh in a triangle.
Yeah, so just yeah, usually I try to like envision something and then make it work out.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. So then follow-up question again by Troublemaker. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the balance between creating shapes in a flourish and flow?
Creating shapes in a flourish. I'm not sure if I quite understand that, but
yeah. So the way I interpret it, at least, is that you can. It's kind of like when you have a display, like the Leno cut, for example. Getting
yeah.
into Leno cut is kind of boring and stupid, to be honest. The whole point is the display, and then also the closer is just everything in reverse, which is also boring and stupid, in my opinion. So there's that. On the other hand, you can have a flourish which is more flowy, but has maybe a less interesting structure as a result of flowing. So there's kind of a push and pull in that sense.
Right. I don't know. It's really hard to find a balance between that because, like, setup is kind of boring unless it's for something small and fairly simple. But I mean, I've got this one like two-handed thing, which is like go triangle and then that
Right.
into a square, which is a lot more flowy, but it's smaller shapes, so it's not necessarily like a balance so much as me like going flowy for some things and then just like a bit heavy-handed for other things.
Right. And I think kind of the yep, go ahead.
I don't think like the slow, like boring way is necessarily a bad thing because oftentimes like it's like you don't need it to be like flowy because the method in itself you can appreciate and be like, oh, that's really genius.
Yeah.
Like for stuff like Chevron, I think, not to hype my own stuff, but like I mean the formation for that is really slow, but there's like not any other structure move that has that kind of setup information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like that the visual interest and ingenuity compensates for the lack of flow in those things.
Yeah, I think I agree, and especially with something like Chevron. I remember the first time I saw that video. It's one of those things where you see the beginning and you set it up, and then there's still that element of surprise that hits you. The bottom part opening. And I think that's just as effective as something that's flowy. If anything, I think it's more effective, at least at first sight, than something that's flowy, because something that's flowy can kind of hide what's going on in a way. So that's something that's, for example, Elliot's is, very flowy and really fast as well. And some people are like, oh, well, he's just fast. And the things that I realized, if you take a closer look at the videos, and there's some really interesting mechanics that are almost
and really difficult things too.
Oh yes.
Like the knuckle spin is like nigh impossible for me to do, but like he just does it so quickly that you're like, it's easy. He's just fast,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there is a downside to having things that are flowy, and also he has this thing where he does like a push over, but then he turns it all around 360.
Yeah. It's sweet.
Yeah, and it took me to realize that was going on, but yeah, and then I tried it, and then it was like, oh wow, Jesus, Elliot. So yeah. Also, Troublemaker, also a follow-up question. There's two more after that, so so as a judge for various competitions at this point, what do you look for in a cardistry competition video?
Well, me, I mean, I'm kind of mostly big on creativity. Not so much the production, but the video has to be solid.
Right.
And in some cases, if I've got one video that has solid production and pretty good moves, I'll take that over a video that looks like really bad quality but has like creative but sloppily done moves.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Basically, like, I don't value creativity like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't value it singularly. Like it has to be combined. It has to look good,
Yeah, and it's also because if you have a video that is bad quality or badly shot or boring, it just straight up hides the creativity. The cardistry is just not as apparent in a video that looks bad.
And you want the video to be like easy on the eyes.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So like creativity usually, but also you need to make sure that it's like filmed and edited well.
Yeah.
And that you can perform the stuff with some level of competence.
Yeah. That's an important one. Yeah. Okay, so other question by Troublemaker. He's asking, does Troublemaker ask all of the best questions? And so far, just given the sample size, I don't think it's a fair...
Well, he has been asking like 100% of the questions so far, I think.
Pretty much, yeah. So, okay, no, actual question. Do you have some tips for coming up with closers for complex shapes?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's different in a lot of cases. Like, Prism has a kind of like, I don't know, it seems like intuitive. It's not necessarily like good looking, I guess, but it's just like, I think it's the way, like the sensible way to close it.
Right.
I think, actually, I think it's kind of important for shapes. Like, you don't need to overemphasize the closer and make something like really ridiculous and flowy and complex. It just needs to like more or less get the job done.
Right. Yeah.
Because like if the closer is like really long and drawn out, then that takes away from the climax of the move, which is the structure.
Yeah, you've kind of gotten past the points of the flourish, so it's just a matter of getting getting out of the flourish in a okay way.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's really different for every move, but I mean, if you're just doing a move that's just like a pure structure, like kind of like slower setup and then boom the structure, then I think you'd want just like a really efficient, quick kind of closer.
Yeah, Yeah, that's one of my problems with the Leno cut. I don't know why I keep bashing the Leno cut, but but yeah, it's the same. It seems like just doing the build up in reverse is not a good way of closing that. All right, so that's for that. So, oh yes, so apparently there's someone who did 7 prisms on top of each other. Have you seen that? I imagine you would have gotten
see that.
tagged
Yeah, it
through
was
the
tagged,
roof.
yeah.
Yeah. So, any thoughts on the whole prism upon prism thing?
I mean, honestly,
That kind of summarizes it.
Practically, I would draw the line at 2 because above 3, I don't think there's really a closer besides unstacking everything, which would be the stupidest closer alive. So, I mean, it's cool. I know it for sure takes a lot of time and patience and practice, but to a certain point just seems a bit overkill. And maybe like even me doing 5 was overkill at that point.
Yeah, it looked a bit silly,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Impressive, but a bit silly. Well, also you kind of had a theme going on where you kept adding prisms, so
Yeah, I think like with that I was just like trying to push the envelope and show us like, oh, this is like how far the move can go. But practically 2. I think 2's the most that people should do, unless they have a closer for one of the larger ones and they can do it faster. Then maybe.
I'd be curious to see how you don't just unstack it.
Yeah, I had an idea where you would have like the prism and then you'd like lay it down on your arm and then like close it that way, but I mean I couldn't get it to work.
Yeah,
essentially because like it would take like too much effort to practice a closer, because every time you wanted to try the closer you need to like stack up a prism set, and ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, but I have to say I think one of my favorite prism things is the double one where you separate it and do it
yeah
2 in a row.
I think like that's definitely a much cooler thing than doing like multiple prism stacks, and
Yeah.
it's way more difficult too.
I would imagine so, yeah. Because it's one thing just to have to balance a bunch of prisms. It's another to
the separation isn't necessarily difficult, but getting it to spin is really weird.
Right,
because you've got like all these different like balance points that are spread between 4 fingers, and it's like tough to get things positioned right.
Yeah, I remember in that video you have the biggest grin on your face.
Yeah, that was literally the first time I had got it to work like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, and like the only time since.
Yeah, you don't do it on a regular basis anymore.
No, not that. I got it on video, so I was like, okay, you know what? I don't need to do this again for ever, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like, you know, Dimitri's double box thing where he goes in like a chair position and then has the second box pop up. He does it in opera.
Yeah.
It's like a movie. He's like, oh yeah, I do it like once a year, and I'm like, okay, this is going
now.
now.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just like the practice aspect, you know, because you need like all these things to line up perfectly for even you to nail it in practice, let alone like trying to get it in front of the camera.
Yeah, I've definitely had some of those ideas where it's like, well, I could technically get this to work like that, but then I tried twice and I'm like,
yeah, I mean, like I'm sure if you set yourself to it, you can get like anything to Darren level of consistency, but
you might need a few decades for a single move.
Some stuff is just too frustrating.
Yeah, it's kind of something you touch upon in your Who Shuffles Like That article. That's right, I did my homework. So you're talking about basic moves, right? And so picking a basic move and kind of iterating upon that. And so one thing that you said that's kind of interesting is that it has to be easy enough to do that you could do it consistently, so you can actually explore it. But
Yeah.
also just in general, you have to be able to do it. Otherwise, you can't really get anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, there's no point in trying to do a variation on a move that you have a lot of difficulty doing, unless you make such a variation that allows you to do the move in an easier way or in your own style. But like, if you're trying to make your own moves out of basic moves, like, make sure they're basic enough for you to be able to do really well.
Yeah, this is the thing I struggle with, the triple Ernest go around thing that I do in one hand.
Yeah.
It's kind of thing that I could do with squids every once in a while, and I know I can do it with cards, especially in an older deck, but not sure it's really worth the effort.
Yeah.
Especially because of how high I need to get the cards to fly. That means that the camera has to be far back, so no one will really know if I'm using squids.
True.
So I think I'm pretty set. I have that on Instagram, so I think I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, because I think that's a kendama thing too. Like, this guy named Harrison came to Portland, and he's a kendama player, and I guess like in that kind of group, like if you nail something on camera, then like it's on the record, you've done it, and it's not one of those like cardistry things where it's like, hey, do water wheel. It's like, okay, sure. Like, they don't
Right,
like,
yeah.
they don't do that with kendama. As long as it's on camera, it's like set in stone,
Yeah, because it's one of those things where the kind of the core of the art form is the sheer technical difficulty. So once you've shown that you could do it at least once, that's already impressive enough that
Yeah.
you're set.
But yeah, like, consistency is definitely like a major thing in cardistry.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, because like, I mean, now that Cardistry are happening every year for sure, and whatnot.
You gotta be able to show people your stuff.
Yeah, you have to be careful with what you put in videos.
Shouts out Spencer for asking me to do like my isolation sequence for everyone.
Well, that's just because Spencer's the worst.
Yes.
I hope you're watching, Spencer. All right, so let's see some other questions. Oh, this is an interesting one. Again, troublemaker. I'm sure he has like a text document with just all of the possible questions. So, what are your thoughts on the ethics of learning a move from a performance at quarter speed?
Really? I mean, I don't think there's enough information in that to do it properly.
Yes. Yeah, that's
unfortunately, sometimes that's the only choice you have, especially in my case, where I haven't taught Prism yet. And
right.
People have been asking for it for years, and they're like, when's it going to come out? When can I learn this? And like, they obviously really want to learn it, and I haven't delivered to them yet. So sometimes it's like one of the only options, especially if like you really want to do the move. But
yeah.
I'm honestly kind of either way on it. But if the person has taught the move, then don't learn it at quarter speed on YouTube. Go pay that person, buy their download, and learn it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just a few dollars. Come on. But it's interesting because I never thought about that issue, because there's the obvious ethical issue of, well, you shouldn't be teaching moves that other people have paid tutorials for. That's pretty straightforward one. That's pretty hard to argue against. And there's this thing with Chris Everson. I don't know if you saw that, where this.
Yeah, I did. That sucks.
Yep. And it's funny. I don't know if you went to the YouTube section, but I went there, and literally everyone's just saying, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing? This is He's not cool. And the thing that's interesting is that he has like he justifies it to himself. He's not like aware that it's bad. He's just like, no, but it's not stealing because it's not against the law, and so that's that's how stealing is defined. No, that's not. I don't agree with that.
Okay, true. There's like a difference between like stealing and like being a douche in this case. Like it may be the latter.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you could make a stealing argument in the sense that he has something that you pay for out there, and by having a free tutorial, just by law of microeconomics, people are going to go more towards the free one than the one you have to pay for, and as a result, Chris is making less money because of that video.
Stealing customers from him.
Yeah, and the guy has a Patreon. He's completely fine with people giving him money.
Which is like the most like ridiculous part of this. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. It's like, hey, support me for teaching this other person's paid move.
Yeah.
Which that's like that really grinds my gears.
Yeah, no, it's obnoxious. But yeah, at least in that case, the ethical dilemma is pretty straightforward. Just don't. There's a couple of people out there who do it, and they're just pretty much everyone's just not happy with it.
I think like the bright side of things though is that like they really have no standing in the community.
Yeah.
Like, you can't gain standing in the community if you rip people's moves off and like teach them.
Yeah, if I were them, I wouldn't want to go to Cardistry.
No,
that doesn't sound like a fun time. So yeah, that's a bright side, I suppose. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about watching things at quarter speed because it's a very different thing. Because also you can kind of see people who are more experienced with tutorials will make trailers for tutorials, kind of obfuscate the move itself. And you have this interesting balance where you want to show it off just enough that people understand it's really cool, but not quite as much that they'll just learn from the trailer.
Yeah, the dealer's grip phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah, they have that on points. Whereas if you go on the Tier 11 marketplace, which I think isn't very active, at least from a customer standpoint, but that's a different topic. Yeah, you can tell a lot of people are just kind of, including myself, just kind of put the move out there and have the trailer just be the move uncut, and then you buy it if you want to download. Obviously, doesn't make a difference if you just have a free download, but if you're trying to make people pay for it, then it doesn't really work.
Yeah, I think like I don't know, like there's a lot of nuances and gray area in the whole thing, but I think just the main thing is that if someone has taught it and you can support them by buying it, then you should by all means do that.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, I think. All right, so Upside Down Utopia is asking, does it matter how much knowledge one has in order to get inspired? So can a beginner cardist get creating material with only the basics, basically?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there's like quite a few guys nowadays who haven't been doing cardistry like years and years and years, and they've got a lot of cool stuff. But I think this is one of the things that Dimitri touches upon in his new book, or maybe it was like the talk he did with Andre. But like basically, like as a beginner, the stuff you can create is kind of limited to the moves that you can do and your abilities. So like the stuff you can create might not be that good just because your abilities aren't like at the level that your creativity would require.
Yeah, because in order to be creative, you need to have a lot of experience creating, and that usually involves creating a bunch of bad stuff, which is fine. So in that sense, a beginner, I don't think can create much of anything that's interesting. On the other hand, there is something to be said about not being exposed to being exposed to less stuff allows you to not have to think outside the box because you don't know where the box is, right? So that's definitely an option. I feel like I'm kind of in that category because I'm at a point where I haven't learned a lot of things in a couple years, and so I just try to go off of stuff that I create, and sometimes it means that I come up with something that someone else has already created. I'm like, well, too bad.
Yeah, I think everyone's been there.
Yeah, actually, there's an interesting thing because there's this move, which was originally I'll put the camera on myself just for this move, which I haven't really practiced in a while, but it's like an upside down L cut type of thing. And so the first creator seems to be Ollie Isaacs, who calls it pamphlet. But it's also something that I independently came up with during the ICO thing last year. Also, Oliver came up with basically the same thing, except he doesn't do it running. He just has that. And there's every once in a while people come up with it, and it's interesting because it's at that point where it's not quite interesting enough that it's like popularly known, but it's accessible
Something that
enough
people
that
have created independently before. It's like low hanging fruit. Like some moves, like they're cool, but they're not like technically like really out there. So like some people can create the same move like at the same time just by messing around with something.
Yeah. There's kind of,
if the mechanics are simple enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's happened to me a couple times. Also with this this linked cut, which looks something like that.
I saw that on Best Cardists Alive by someone else recently.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
it was probably Billy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he has a version that's just straight up better. It's just yeah, because he has like through packet spinning and it just makes more sense. But yeah, it's also there's another guy who came up with it just about at the same time I came up with it, which is Baptiste, who's a French cardist. He's the pred lover on Reddit.
Yep.
And yeah, it's I guess it makes things interesting in terms of crediting, but you do make a good point that those moves are usually not quite interesting enough to be something on their own.
Yeah, and I think because like back in the day, the whole crediting thing was really blown out of proportion, and it was a huge deal, like who made what first. But I think like if you make a move that's like different and unique enough to yourself, that someone probably shouldn't or wouldn't have made it before.
Yeah.
And I think like if there's just like small stuff like pamphlet, like people shouldn't get like their panties in a bunch about
Oh yeah.
like crediting stuff like who made that first? Well, I mean like a bunch of people made that independently, so like crediting shouldn't be like an issue there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and crediting just in general has been a lot less important to people. I'm not exactly sure like when that transition happens or why. I think it might just be because more people started doing things and less people started crediting, which means that if other people are not crediting, then you don't have the same pressure to credit as well.
Yeah, and I think it was also like an old schoolish mentality. Like
right.
Back on the forums.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this interesting talk at CardistryCon, which was about that, and I don't know. I think the talk was or rather, it was a panel. I think it was a bit flawed because they were arguing against two different things, which was one crediting, when you're making a tutorial for a move, and crediting when you're making a video. And Dimitri's point was that when you're crediting for making a video, then there's just too much to credit, and it gets really hard to credit because everything gets blurred together. And at best, you can draw from your largest inspirations, but it gets really difficult. And I think David was the other person on this panel. Yeah, and he was arguing that people deserve the credit they deserve, and if you're going to teach a move, then you need to give the credit. And I was like, well, yeah, you're both right.
Yeah, it's one of those topics. It's like, well, this discussion isn't really going anywhere.
Yeah. Though David threw the Cardistry IO thing. I don't know if you're on the beta. I think you are. I have no idea actually.
I should see if I can get on that.
Yeah, I've been on it. I think it's still in beta, and it benefits from having just more people on it. But it seems like it's very promising for now. But yeah, so the idea is that you can you have your own videos, you have your own tutorials, and you have your own moves, and you could just have something that's just a move, and in that sense you can do the proper crediting there, and it just kind of propagates through the videos. And so when you reference that move, you also reference the credits and stuff, which makes the whole process a lot easier. And for those who care, they can look at all of that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of gets around the whole, it's too difficult to do things properly. That doesn't mean they'll actually solve the problem, because that still means that people will have to give credit where they think is due for moves. And sometimes it's really hard because it feels like it just doesn't come from anywhere. It's just, from messing around or something.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. But all right. Let's see questions. Oh, interesting question from Gis doing magic and cardistry. What do you think would happen? This is really a bit difficult.
If literally everyone is doing cardistry.
Yes. What do you think will happen if literally everyone's doing cardistry? What is, I guess, more on a social level than on a cardistry level?
Well, that would be pretty sweet. Like, probably no more wars. We'd all have like a common interest in cards. Solve a lot of world problems, I'm sure. Zach would probably be the president
of the world. Yeah.
God Emperor Zach.
Yeah, so one thing I've noticed is that it's for a lot of people it's obvious that people should just, it'd be great if more people do cardistry. There are some people who argue against that part of what's nice about the cardistry community is how close-knit it is. So for example, if you imagine CardistryCon having even 10,000 people,
that's a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot of people. It'd have to start filling stadiums, and so inevitably there has to be
however, on the counterpoint, if that was the case, there'd probably be more localized cardistry cons, and there could just be like a California cardistry con, which would not be 10,000 people, but it would be like more tight knit than just like one cardistry con.
Right. Yeah.
But I think from that aspect, it would be sweet, like not needing to travel far to hang out with cardists, especially because there's a lot of guys out there who probably haven't met another cardist in their life, and that life is pretty lonely.
It's tough. Yeah. It's also, one of the key trouble I had when not living any other cardist, which is really most of my life. But it's just finding the motivation to just keep going. Because it's a lot more motivating when you can go to someone and be like, oh yeah, check this out, and they can react and kind of build off of each other. Without that, it's hard to stay motivated and just feed off of the YouTube or Instagrams. I liked, I think, was it Brendan who was saying something along the lines no, it was Franco who had a talk at CardistryCon, which is basically just find people who do cardistry. Which is important. Also kind of hard sometimes when just there aren't anyone, or if you live in Alaska, there's just less people statistically.
Yeah.
You have less of a chance. Actually, it's funny here because I go to college with about 350 students total, which is really small. But there's one other person who does cardistry, which I think means that we have the highest density of cardists in any college, just by virtue of having 2 out of 300. So yeah, actually, we started a cardistry club and got some of the first year students interested.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so right now we're floating more at 7 to 10, which definitely puts us in the up top there.
That is pretty sweet. I always kind of wanted to start one at like my high school or like at my college, but I don't know. I never quite figured out like how I'd market it without just looking like someone who just like fiddles with cards all days.
Yeah, I don't know why it worked out so well this time, because last year when I was a first year, no one else was really interested. So there was that. But this time, I don't know what it was. But also the thing is that it takes like a very particular type of person to get into cardistry, because it's an interesting mix of creativity, but also just grunt work and lots of failure and getting past that and stuff like that. So I mean, right now there's 7 to 10. Who knows how many there'll be next weekend, next year, etc. Probably a lot less. But it's always fun to teach people cardistry. And as a beginner, it's always better to have someone teach you cardistry than trying to figure things out from videos.
Yeah, because I don't know, just like browsing the Reddit, it seems like anytime someone's like, I'm trying to get into cardistry, what should I do? There's no like clear path for them that most people can point to, because most people try to like figure out, well, how did I start in cardistry? But it's really difficult to pinpoint like exactly like what videos you watched to learn the things you did.
Yeah, and also, wow, I just blanked out there. I just saw Spencer was in chat engine. It just cleared my mind. Yeah, it's also because, I mean, a lot of it comes down to, well, and I mean, there's these free tutorials, and there's School of Cardistry and a bunch of good sources now, rather than random videos scattered. But I mean, the answer is kind of anticlimactic, which is, well, look at this video and try to figure it out and be bad for a while and then be less bad, and then eventually you'll be almost good.
Yeah, and there's also the practice aspect that is so tough to communicate, because you really need to put a ton of time into it to get anywhere in the early stages.
Yeah, it's kind of like people who play piano. You want to say, oh man, they're so talented, but they'll just say, well, I've just done it like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to tell people that literally anyone can learn cardistry. It's just a matter of time and dedication. So, yeah, but I don't know. Actually, the whole cardistry club thing might be an interesting social experiment to see how things stick. So yeah, let's see. I saw some interesting questions going through the chat. Let's see. All right, so this is a question for both of us, which is, how did you guys develop your own styles when starting out in cardistry?
Well, I started off at Handlords, and over there shapes were kind of a big deal, because like there's the whole underground aspect to them and the whole difficulty factor, which was really valued in that community. So I kind of started doing sculptures really early on. Like VREC was actually one of the first like flourishes I learned. Like I watched the video of Beaudouin, like the forward dribble and then the coin roll in VREC, and I'm like, I gotta learn that. Like me being only like less than a year into cards, but yeah, I kind of just always liked shapes. And then like I took a break near the end of high school, and then when I came back, I just kind of went back to what I knew, and I think it really made a lot more sense why I like sculptures when I came back, because like I've always liked like architectural things and geometrical stuff. So I think that's kind of it.
Yeah,
just like geometry and stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't think I have that clear an answer in my case, because I'm more in the packet cutting realm of things. Though some
Cut
people
kitty.
might call me a cut kitty, yeah. Or I do have the whole organized go around thing going on, but I don't think that's really a style.
It's a lifestyle for sure.
Of course, yeah. I think Spencer would argue the same. Every time Spencer does an Ernest go around, he messages me.
Yep.
So yeah, but I don't know. It's I think for me, it's more like, I guess it's kind of along the same lines where I just kind of did what I liked, and then I started categorizing what I like, why I like those things, and figuring out what I liked about them, and I kind of started shaping my style, and I could explore in that direction.
Yeah.
If that means anything.
Also, like when I came back into Cardistry, I didn't have that many decks, and especially like around WKC time when I was making moves prior to that, I had like that red deck of tallies. That was like one of the few decks I had, and it was incredibly garbage. So like shapes were like if you're messing around with a poop deck, like shapes kind of
Emerge. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So other interesting question. Man, we have some good questions today. Not all of them by Troublemaker too, by the way. Just not to put Troublemaker down, but it's just throwing that out there. Ethan's asking, how do you both feel about publishing moves in a performance video versus single move video like Instagram?
Well, YouTube was definitely like the only way to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
And even now, I feel like it's just more official if you do something on YouTube. I think that might have a big part to deal with just like it's easier to navigate through YouTube and find a video with a published move in it versus Instagram, which is just an innocuous
blob
of pictures that if you're trying to find a move, like someone's move on there that you saw like a year ago, it's near impossible.
Yeah, if only there was a website that would enable, it was designed for the Cardistry.
That would be sweet. Someone should get on that.
Yeah, so I'm sure Cardistry IO is not taking it or anything. But yeah. So it's interesting. I think the whole YouTube thing is definitely somewhat part of the past. People who are newer to the community are more inclined to post things on Instagram than to make a video. I think partially just because making a video is a lot of effort, especially making a good video. And people who are like people who made videos for CardistryCon, I think for them they're still in the mindsets that you kind of have to like put all of your work into one big video that kind of has everything. Which I also am of the mind of. I have a couple of things that I'm holding on to for a video, but sometimes I wonder, well, maybe I could just throw it on Instagram and could get faster feedback like that. I don't think there's definitely a better versus worse. I think it just kind of depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think like publishing on like a move on Instagram would be cool and all, but I still would eventually like said move to be published on YouTube at a later time. Maybe as part
Yeah,
of like a larger video.
yeah. That also makes sense in terms of, if you want it to be referenced in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, for sure.
Saying, "Oh, that move you did once on that Instagram," rather, "Oh, that," either, moving castles. If I say that, it's like, "Oh yeah, that video." It's a lot
Yeah.
more noticeable. Or, that video, with, I don't know, it's you can kind of describe the video, and that also has the same effect. It's a lot more searchable and also memorable, I think. Because also, if you make something for Instagram, you're going to put less work into, the framing and stuff. Whereas if you make an actual video, you can actually think about, how you want to frame the thing, and you can actually work it properly. So I suppose there's sort of that as an element. So yeah, let's see. All right. Oh wow, people have been busy on chat. All right. Oh, so Gis is wondering, Gis doing magic.
And Cardistry.
And Cardistry. Yeah, no, I should say that as well. So what is your best original one-handed cut, or the best that you can do, at least? I like the distinction there.
Probably piano cuts, TBH.
Yeah.
Really think they're sweet. And
Yeah,
to reference a previous question, like they're one of the things that I show laymen.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, we can talk about laymen, actually. That's a nice segue. So yeah, how do you what is your position in terms of laymen when it comes to cardistry? Because there's this bit of a spectrum between, oh, I'd just rather not even try showing them, or, oh, I want to expose them and try to make them understand.
Yeah, I mean, some people are really good at that. Like Frankie, he's got like a whole set of moves, I'm sure, and then like this spiel he gives that he's given like 100 times because it's really clear cut. But me, I'm kind of just like, hey, do this thing called cardistry. It's like cards and art history. And I just like show them some moves.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird for me at least to demonstrate it. But
I have
show them a few moves.
Yeah, it's weird because there are some moves that they can get, and some that they just don't. Like a lot of the time, packet cuts just don't really have an effect because just kind of just stuff is happening. And the thing with a packet cut is that it has a history, and as a cardist, you can see that history and where things are from, and you can see, oh, there's a bit of nimbus there and stuff, and you can really appreciate it a lot more because of that. Whereas the layman just hasn't seen anything, and so you just see kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Which in some sense can be good in terms of determining, like, this is, I think, something that Antoine does. He talks about it in his portrait video with Cardistry Touch, which is that, sometimes he'll just show things to laymen and be like, all right, so what do you think? And, they'll say, well, I don't really get it. Or they'll be, oh yeah, I like how this thing, everything's spinning at the same time. And I'll be, all right, cool. So that's one to lock down on. Yeah, I've also found myself having a hard time, because basically all you have to really do is a spring and a couple fans, and
yeah,
I'll get the point across. But
yeah, really just like when I show stuff off to people, I mean, spring always gets a laugh and a good reaction. Some pressure fans, piano cuts, a few shape things.
Right.
I do usually show people Squeeze though.
Yeah, Squeeze is a really, really solid one. I like to do Squeeze into VBH, but that's just because I like doing Squeeze into VBH. Not as much as it is being good. Yeah. All right. So it's weird. The YouTube chat thing is a bit weird because it kind of skips stuff if you move to the bottom. But anyways, someone's asking about the stop sign that I have right there. No, so I didn't actually steal that. Not myself, at least. This is it's one of those things that's upperclassmen hand down to newer students as they graduate, and so this is one that I've inherited. It's also not the only one in this hallway of this dorm. Uh, so anyways, that's that.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's someone that lives down the hall has a particular liking for the stolen public property aesthetic. And so that, as it turns out, you can actually just buy a lot of signs.
Oh,
Yeah, you can just buy them. There's like, at least in Boston, there's a store where you can buy a bunch of traffic signs. And so I don't think you can buy stop signs because that's a bit more of a big deal. But for example, you can buy a no loitering sign, which makes sense because if you're a business, you might want one of
true.
those. We have one of those, but we crossed out the no because that's what we do, loiter. Also, a friend has a one of those maps of the subway that you might find in the subway, but he has it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
his room, which is pretty cool. So anyways, on the topic of Cardistry, I guess. I don't know. All right. And actually, a bit of a spin-off question from before. So, on the topic of when should you publish a move in a performance, so in a Instagram versus video. The other question is, when do you actually release moves? If that makes any sense. So kind of, making videos all the time versus making one big video that really captures everything. I suppose it's kind of the same discussion. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, like me in particular, I just kind of like don't make videos.
That's also a strategy.
Yeah, like definitely like saving stuff off and dropping it in videos.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it to be harder and harder with things like Instagram, where I feel like I have to post every 3 days. That's basically my my threshold. But I feel like, well, I have all this stuff, but I want to keep it for a video. But at the same time, I need to have new stuff for Instagram. It gets complicated to keep that balance. But yeah, I don't think. I guess it kind of depends on what your objective is. I think it is more powerful to release everything in one video. It's also something that's easier to point to, like for other people. It's easier to say if you're trying to get yourself noticed. It's a good way to get all of your stuff noticed at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Versus a move on Best Cardists Alive. I guess you people will go to the person's profile. I don't know.
You can also do what Oliver and Tobias do and do both.
Oh yeah.
Publish like tons of moves every day on Insta and then drop awesome videos with new moves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit harder. I guess that is the proper solution, but yep. All right, let's see what else do we have here. So Troublemaker, plot twist.
Strikes again.
Yes, is asking how to get together with other cardists. So he wants to organize a jam in his area and stuff, and he advised it on Theory 11 forums. I think first of all, there's a problem with that because I don't think people go on Theory 11 really anymore for Cardistry, based off of my analysis
True.
of the marketplace. For example, the other day there was they have like the top 5 free moves and top 5 paid moves. Well, the top move had 2 stars out of 5. Which either means they don't have a very good algorithm, or they just don't have enough data coming in. I don't know. I don't actually have that information, but that's my hypothesis. But yeah, so how do you reach out to Cardists? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm lucky enough to live in Portland, where there just so happens to be like a bunch of other Cardists in this area, and I really had no idea about this like 2 years ago or so.
Yeah.
I think like I first met up with Sean a few years back. Somehow we figured out we were both in Portland, so we met up. Then I think a while later, I posted like a picture of the Portland airport carpet on my Instagram, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, hey,
I know that
Portland." Yeah, it's funny. Portland has this their airport carpet is pretty notorious.
Oh, really? How? I didn't realize a carpet could be of enough interest.
It's a Portland thing.
All right, I guess.
Yeah, and then a bunch of people reached out to me, and yeah, a few years later, just slowly building up and finding other people in Portland. Planning things with them is a whole different issue though, because like trying to coordinate a date and find a time when everyone's free is pretty difficult. But
yeah, I
guess just post pictures of famous landmarks near where you live and
famous carpet.
See if people comment like, "Oh, hey, do you live there?"
Yeah, there's also there's a French website, Cart Tutorials Only, which mostly deals with cart tutorials. But they also have a Cardist map, which has the rough location of a bunch of Cardists, which is pretty useful. I've reached out to a few people because of that, and it's one of those things where the more people use it, the more good it is. So that's definitely one resource. Also, Reddit is probably a good place to go. Apparently, there are 13,000 people, almost 14,000, that are subscribed to the subreddit. So
yeah,
there's got to be. I mean, there's possibly someone who lives near you, and every once in a while you see those things which are anyone live in Las Vegas or anything, and then I imagine those people could have a couple DMs of people who live there, and it's probably a good time. So yeah, also feel free to just message people on Facebook or Instagram, because most of the time they'll actually probably answer. I know I do. I know a lot of big names do. I'm not going to say anyone in particular because then obviously they'll get a whole bunch of messages. But yeah, that's also definitely something we could do. One of the benefits of being such a small community is that people don't get nearly as swamped as celebrities. I think Zach, for example, is an exception where I imagine he gets just a truckload of messages on a daily basis and just can't physically respond. But yeah, I don't know. People message me once in a while, and I answer if it's something that's reasonable and human. But yeah, so I don't know. People are people, and you're people, so you can extrapolate a bit.
Well,
yeah. What?
Well put. People are people.
That's what they know me for. Just that deep wisdom. David is asking if there's people who live in New York and do cardistry, yes, there's a bunch of people in New York / New Jersey who do cardistry, and they're pretty easy to find. I think kind of the source is, well, Patrick lives in New Jersey. Matt Fox lives also somewhere in New Jersey, etc. And every once in a while, they'll just go down to New York and have a good old time. So yeah, find those people, and you will find some Cardist friends. All right, so yeah, let's see some other questions. Yeah, actually, I have a question for you, which is one of the more general ones that's harder to answer. So sorry in advance. Do you can you kind of identify what makes a good move? Like, because every once in a while you'll see a move on Instagram and you're like, that's good. This is good. And every once in a while you'll see something and you're like, no, like there's something new here, but it's just not good. And it can be hard to put your finger on why that may be. Have you found some thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in terms of the latter, where you see something that's like original, but you're just like, it's okay. It can be like one of the cases of like a low hanging fruit move. It's like, well, that probably didn't take you like super long to come up with, or like the thought process wasn't really anything special, but I don't know. And other times it's just practice, like it's executed really poorly, so you can't see the potential. But Dimitri's book is all about this.
Yeah.
Like what makes good moves. Y'all should check it out.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Nudge. But yeah, I think just to like quote him, some of the things that make moves good, or if they're like visually different and if you're able to explain them, like some of the really good moves are not necessarily complicated, you know. Like water wheel. I mean, it's it's hard to do, but it's not like complicated to understand how it works, you know, like you one hand pharaoh and then they fall into the other hand, or like spring, you know, like cards like travel through the air from one hand to another. I mean, so yeah.
You kind of have to find that uniqueness, and having something that is simple is kind of powerful in its own respects, right? Because it's like, oh man, there's some moves where you look at them and you think, oh man, why didn't I think of that? It's like right there, but it's so good. It's weird because it's definitely not a low hanging fruit, but it's also it's
something that's intuitive but not intuitive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. But it's hard to characterize when those moves exist and what makes, like, I feel like Aviv is one of the greatest at that, and you know, he'll come up with something. I was like, if you see what I mean, you know. But so yeah, there's some of that, but there's also things like technical aspects, which are, you know, how well does it flow? And one thing that I think a lot of people might overlook is, does the move make sense? Is it coherent within itself? Does it have like a theme that kind of goes throughout it? Which are all things that are important. Also, another thing I noticed. Yeah, good.
Yeah, like move design is really important. Like it has to make sense. It can't just be like ideas on top of ideas on top of ideas, just like stuffed into one move.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's and it's really easy to go about doing that, because if your thought process is just based off of playing around with stuff, then what you'll do is you'll come up with it. You'll end up in a grip and figure out what you can do from that grip, and then just keep going until you come up with something that's a closer. And usually, you know, there's like good ideas in there, but it's not satisfying. He's like, I see a bunch of those on Instagram. It's like, oh, there's like a nugget in there, but you kind of have to push away all the dirt from it and wash it out, cleaning it up, and kind of refine it into something that looks good. And I think the way kind of Patrick's move philosophy, if you will, is there's kind of like this nugget that you kind of build on from the front and the back, and you kind of get something to the what he calls the why you're doing the move, and the how is how you get into the move and leave the move, and stuff like that. The technical aspects. And in that sense, it's more of a how are you enhancing the move by creating everything around it. So if you have like a specific moment that you want to highlight, how do you have that moment get highlighted more by an opener or closer?
Yeah.
In another way, in terms of things that make moves bad, I don't know. I have a couple pet peeves when I see things on Instagram. There's things that I just look at. I'm like, oh, nah, sorry. That's just this one thing that really bothers me. So, for example, like, partially it's because I used to do it all the time, but just having triangles pop up in your flourish and then just not doing anything with it.
Huge pet peeve.
I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah, we have.
And it's part of the reason it is a pet peeve. Yeah, good.
Yeah, the fact that we've been there and that we've moved on from that is one of the reasons why we hate it, because it takes a certain amount of taste to know when to not just pop a random triangle into a cut.
Yeah,
like, things need to make sense, and if a triangle was in a move where you're left wondering why is that in this move, then it probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah. I think so. When I noticed that I was doing a thing where I just kept having triangles pop up, so what I did is just had a sequence of triangles and just shoved all of my triangle ideas in that sequence, and I said, okay, that's my triangle stuff. All right, now I can move on.
Phase is over.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, if you could make a sequence which is just you producing triangles, like triangle productions. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was actually kind of interesting. I should probably look back at that and see if
that'd also be like a pretty funny gag kind of move. Like you have this cut that just keeps on popping up random triangles.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I was selling the move at meetups. It'd be like, oh yeah, so I have this move, and I get into this triangle, and it's cool. And there's another triangle, and you think I'm done with triangles, but bam, another triangle. But yeah, the other thing with triangles specifically is that part of it is that because it's a simple shape, the shape itself is not interesting. It's just a triangle. So you have to be doing something with that shape to make it interesting. So for example, expanding the triangle, that's really interesting. Just having a cut and then having a triangle, the triangle is not interesting in itself. So there's no reason for it to be there. If you get into like a really interesting way to get into a triangle, then yeah, I can buy that. And it's kind of the thing, I guess, to go back to what you were talking about before, is, you have, the more important the structure is, the less important the thing around it should be.
Yeah.
Right? And the engineer/mathematician inside of me just wants to graph that as the integral over a curve, but I'll spare you that. So yeah, I forget what the original. Oh yeah, pet peeves. Do you have other pet peeves? I'm curious.
People just ending every move with backdrop.
Oh yes, yeah. Or if I can extend on that, just having a move that just kind of devolves into one card and then doing flicker and something like that.
Yeah,
that's something that gets me.
Like anytime a move has something that it shouldn't have in it, I'm not a fan of.
Right. If it doesn't make sense, then it really takes away.
Also, maybe number one pet peeve is bad fans. Especially if you browse r/Cardistry. There's a lot of messy giant fans that have been making the rounds lately.
Yeah, well, it's there was that yeah, actually I've been playing around with I don't know if this is a Vivs actually, but this fan where you kind of spread it out and
Yeah.
curl your fingers. Is that a Vivs?
I'm not sure if it's his. I do recall seeing him do that out of VO.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is you do it, which is another one of those. Of course, makes sense. But yeah, it's there was a thread on the Cardistry subreddit which was why don't people do fans? But of course, our friend Betty is quite the fan of fans himself. And I don't know. I think that was an interesting discussion. And
Yeah, it was.
I don't know what.
Speaking of pet peeves,
what is the pet peeve you're referring to?
we won't touch on that here. But
okay, sounds good. But yeah, so speaking of fans, I think it's interesting because at least from my point of view, and it's just my experience, I'm not enthralled by fans all that much, at least not in terms of creating them or creating stuff around fans. It's just not something I've found to be particularly. It's just not really my thing. Yeah. So I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's really where that discussion kind of just like fell apart. It's like, well, not everyone likes fans. I mean, not everyone likes the same things that you like. So, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, like more fans would be cool, but I mean, I'm not like wondering why more people don't do them. I just assume that people don't do them because it's not their thing, and I leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate a good fan, but it's just I don't know. It doesn't. It's not one of those things that comes within my soul. On the other hand, someone did point out that if you are into fans, then that's really good because that's a really good way to distinguish yourself. Just less people do them, so you have an advantage in that sense. So that's pretty cool. But yeah. Let's see. Good old Mads is saying that curly Q is Bay, though THO, of course. I have a problem with part of curly Q. There's the curly Q that has like where it kind of comes out of the middle, and the one that looks like an actual fan. Recall. The actual fan one looks really cool, especially when Zach does it like really slowly. That's solid. But I have to say the basic curly Q, my problem with it is that when I look at it, all I can think of is it kind of looks like cars are being vomited into a fan. So that
yeah, also, I mean, you don't see it done well very often.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
A lot of times it's like the bottom one is really nice and then the top one is just like that. Yeah,
I think that kind of helps enhance the vomiting effects that I'm getting. Yeah, it's interesting how it started popping up very recently, even though it's existed for a while, because it's in the encyclopedia, right?
It's not.
It's not. Oh,
Jerry talks about it, and he's not a fan of it because, like as far as his philosophy goes, I mean, you should only do like you should only use the most optimal methods to do a move. And in that case, the curly Q is like you're making essentially a fan, but it's not as clean as like him doing like indices fans.
Yeah.
So he viewed it as not worth teaching or even doing because like it ends up looking like a fan, except it's not as clean as like other one-hand fans that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the appeal is kind of the way it pops out automatically and magically. But I don't know. I feel like Riffle Fan is also good at that.
Yeah, and also just like one hand, like
Yeah,
when you see his fans from the top, anyway.
yeah. And there's also it's also one of those moves, kind of like in the same way, Pididdle is really popular because it's hard to do, and so kind of it's one of those questions where like, oh hey, can you Pididdle? Just kind of to gauge how
Yeah,
what
which
kind of
is
cardist you are.
stupid because it's nasty as hell.
Yeah, it's one of those moves where I like tried it for 10 minutes. So I was like, I'm not gonna not gonna spend more time on this.
Yeah, although I feel like those moves, like trendy moves, knacky slash difficult moves, are a way to like for people to like try to build their legitimacy as a cardist.
Yeah, which I mean,
I mean, it's the
sure.
same way for a lot of like dealers good moves too. Like
Yeah,
you see someone doing mantra and they're like, okay, I can do this well, so therefore I'm legit or something.
yeah. Though I have to say, I don't think it's particularly effective, just because, well, I mean, if everyone's doing Pididdle, then, well,
It's
you're not
less
so special.
impressive.
Yeah, it's less impressive. However, if you can do like a hot shot to Pididdle, then you're talking.
That is starting to catch on though.
Yeah, I suppose. Actually, the only
Um,
reason I would ever want to learn Padiddle is because I have this card toss that goes like this.
yeah.
And I could do it stationary. So I think it'd be pretty cool if I could do a card toss into Padiddle in one hand. But I don't have the
Sweet.
patience to do that. So I think my strategy is going to turn it into a trendy move by teaching the one-handed toss, and then it'll have existed, and so my needs will be filled. Anyways, let's see other questions. Uh, in terms of pet peeves, just doing magic and cardistry, is asking about those two-handed cards with a single card that's kind of hanging out. I don't know if you can kind of see what that means. But I guess kind of the idea would be like, you have your standard, standard cut position, which starts from Z cut, and then someone actually I have a better example. So a couple years ago when I was learning the trilogy, I for some reason I thought the coolest thing was to have a card in this position and then just do a cut like
Yeah.
Crab Shack. And it'd be like, whoop, I had to cut a card this whole time. Isn't that cool? It's really not. It's really
Yeah, that's another example of like something in a move that shouldn't be in a move, because you're just doing something because you can, not because you have any reason to do it.
Yeah, I think it does boil down to that.
Although in the case of Albatross and Mantra, it's sick.
Yeah, in Mantra it works swimmingly, but it's because it makes sense.
Yeah.
It just works with the flow and the movements. And there's a couple other cuts that kind of try to utilize that same single card pushing out that just don't quite work as well. I think just because it sounds like the creator was thinking, well, Mantra does this, and this is the cut, so maybe this cut should do it.
Yeah, it really boils down to does it make sense and does it look good?
Yeah. Also, does it? Yeah, because also there's a bunch of things that do make sense but don't necessarily look good, which I have a tendency to run into, because I try to make things look, make a lot of sense, and like especially with things where I'm trying to make things symmetric, with like shapes, and it makes sense to make things symmetric, but sometimes it's just kind of redundant and boring. God damn it! But I tried. But anyways, another troublemaker question. What is your favorite cardistry video ever?
Just was gonna make a joke about it being like Elementals 1 and 2 by Jerry and DeVoe, but I don't think anyone would get that joke. I don't know if I have like a top favorite video, which I know is the lamest answer ever. I mean, it's probably easier to just answer like favorite Cardists because they've made my favorite videos, like Aviv, Dimitri. Dealer's Grip, though, is putting out some solid videos recently. Like I'm a huge fan of their recent videos, especially like Palm. Like they're really experimental.
Yeah, which is interesting. They're I think they're characteristically artsy.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting because that sounds, in a lot of circles, that sounds pejorative. It's like, oh, they're just trying to be artsy, but it really works for them.
Yeah, especially because it's so different than everything else you see.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it works, because as soon as everyone tries to go artsy, then it won't work as well. Or you'll have to be artsy on top of artsy. That didn't make any sense. Don't worry about it.
Arts within arts.
Just it's arts all the way down. That's what it is. Let's see. All right. I wish I had a better way to triage questions. Maybe in the future I'll have people put a tag and I'll just search through. But all right. Yeah. So far that's all we have in terms of questions. I have a couple things I might want to talk about, but people in chat, go ask some questions. Now's the time. It's I mean, quite literally, we're here. I don't know why I'm saying that, but you know, yeah. So, yeah. So when did you actually start doing cardistry? And you remember the turning point when you kind of decided that you're actually doing cardistry, or is it kind of too far back?
Oh no, I remember quite clearly, really. So I started doing magic, as most old boys did, around middle school.
Oh yeah.
And there was an illusionist, of course, and frequented the forums a lot, watched the videos, and DeVoe's Black Tiger deck video was like one of the first exposures I had to XCM, as it was known back then. And I thought that was like a lot cooler and also more in line with what I like to do, because I didn't like performing magic. I just liked doing magic and the sleights.
Yep.
And like the dexterity aspect of it. And cardistry is really just that. You know, it's like you don't need to perform to anyone to get any returns out of it. I suppose same could be true for magic too, but
it doesn't really. Yeah, it's hard to justify being a magician that doesn't perform compared to a cardist that doesn't perform. That's exactly the boat I was in. I was really interested in mechanics. Didn't actually really like performing. I did because I thought that I kind of should, you know, doing magic.
Yeah.
And I remember the first video that that really caught my eye, that I remember watching in loop, was a video by XCM Deck Reviews on the illusionist deaths.
Good old trash man Fletcher.
Oh man, those fans are so big. How can he do it? And so yeah, so you got started on the forums, and I suppose eventually Handlords came around. and you
Yeah, I eventually like started migrating to their form, and then I mean semi-gradual, but I eventually just like dropped magic because I like just doing pure card stuff more.
yeah. Yeah, do you ever do you have a backup magic trick just in case people see you do card stuff and ask for a magic trick, or you want? I mean, what I do is just show off cardistry. What is your preferred approach?
I just tell them don't do magic. I mean, I can do Selenium Shift by Chris Severson, and I can do Clip Shift. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think
Really only because like Selenium Shift, like Chris showed it to me in person when I met him in Brooklyn, and then a lot more later in Mexico when we went to the Cardistry convention there. And I'm like, this is so sick. I've got to learn this.
yeah. I imagine more because of the yeah. I imagine more because of the mechanics than the performance aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I can just like impress myself performing, and I'm like, whoa, the car changed.
I can really relate to that. I think everyone here can relate to the good old clip shit to yourself. Like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I also remember.
I had always wanted to learn clip shift, like back when it came out. But I only recently learned it at the New York Cardistry Con when I saw Huron just casually doing like running clip shifts.
Oh,
I
didn't realize you do that.
No one's watching. Yeah, no, he's really good at it. And yeah, so I had him teach me.
Nice. Yeah, it's. I also remember learning, the double turnover and be like, "Whoa, it looks so good! It looks like I have one card and then it's a different card. Whoa!"
Who says you need to perform magic for other people?
Yeah, I mean, you really don't. It's
just do color changes in the mirror all day.
I like to I do a bit of coin magic on the side, but I don't actually perform because coin magic, is like really interesting from a manipulation standpoint. So I like to call myself a closeted coin magician.
You saw the guy at Berlin CardistryCon, right?
I didn't actually see him. I saw videos of him, but I didn't actually see him do magic. Yeah, no, I did. But yeah, we have a few more questions. Couple of them from Troublemaker, believe it or not. First of all, kind of a straightforward question. Do you ever plan on going down to San Francisco?
Not in the immediate future. I mean, I'm pretty close by there. It's just like work is super busy and I get time off.
Yeah, and it just kind of doesn't really stop for multiple days.
Yeah, I usually go to San Jose like once or twice a year, which is around that area.
Yeah.
And I'll be in LA for CardistryCon next year. So
I was gonna say, I hope you're making plans to go to LA sometime next year.
Sometime.
Yeah, and also more interesting question, if I may say. Sorry, Troublemaker. Do you have tips for overcoming creative blocks?
# take a break.
Yeah, I suppose that.
Yeah, creativity is really one of those things that you can't force, nor should you. So, I mean, like recently, I've just been like so busy with work and stuff that I haven't really made any new stuff for a while. Which, like, eventually, or like a while ago, I would have had a problem with that. I'm like, I'm like losing my drive, like I've lost my spark. But now I'm just kind of like, well, it's just a phase that
It'll come back.
kind of just go in and out of, and like instead during those periods I just try to learn like other people's stuff. Like I got finger spelling a few weeks back, and I'm desperately trying to do the moves in there. It's gonna take a while, but I think that's something good to do, to learn other stuff and pick up some new techniques that you can maybe build off of, or just learn other people's stuff just for the heck of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I found also that things like CardistCon and just meeting other Cardists being really a boost, just because I'm exposed to a couple of other ideas, and also things like being exposed to things that are work in progress, where the ideas are a bit more raw, kind of helps because the opportunities are a bit more obvious. Whereas when you have a move that's like done, it hinges on a specific nugget, but it's hard to distinguish the nugget from what the rest is, and what's putting it together. Whereas when you see like a more raw idea, it's a bit easier to build off of that. Also, I read an article somewhere that was talking about how you could look at basic moves and expand on them. So that's also a possibility.
Solid route.
Some guy wrote an article, I don't know who. But yeah, I also in my experience, I go in kind of phases where I'll just have a block of stuff that kind of pops out. Maybe because I have like this kind of white idea that I build off of in very different ways. That creates like just a bunch of moves, and I refine them over a while. And while I'm refining them, I just kind of don't create stuff. And I'm currently in a period where I'm not really creating stuff because I'm still kind of building on and improving what's existing. And once I get bored with stuff is really when I start playing around with more things, and that's when creativity strikes. So I don't know if that helps, but hopefully it does. We have a couple of important questions, such as, do you ever take a break and read Take a Break?
I wish I wasn't able to get my hands on that.
Yeah. What about getting with a program and reprogramming? It didn't work out.
Every morning.
Actually, that's possibly an interesting question for you. How do squids fit into your life? Because I'm pretty sure they do. That's maybe an assumption I'm making, but.
Well, a while ago I was using them pretty heavily because I was when I was going to school and like taking the train to school every day. I think they're a lot better to to mess around with than cards, because if you drop them in public, then it's not nearly as big of a deal.
There's also less stuff to pick up.
Yeah, since summer started, I've been just hitting the cards pretty hard, but I definitely love squids for the travel aspect, especially now since it's starting to rain a lot. If I want to go anywhere and do cards outside just to fiddle with them, then squids would be more ideal.
Yeah. You can also shower with your squids, which you can't really do with cards.
True.
It's you know how you have shower thoughts. Well, it's having squids in the shower means you can have Cardistry shower thoughts, which are just as good. A bit weirder, I'm not gonna lie. I really would like someone's entire creative process to be based off of doing Cardistry in the shower. Just conceptually.
Cardistry in the bathroom.
Well, there's this. Do you know about this loom guy?
Little underground gem named Loom. Yeah, I've heard about him.
Yeah, he's got some interesting ideas out there. I'm a big fan of the toilet paper spread. So that's a classic, instant classic, if you will. Anyway, so yeah, so you're definitely more on the travel aspect of squids, because for things like structures, they're definitely more restrictive because you have less.
Yeah, and also, I mean, ironically, I think that cards work just as well for the structure stuff that I do, just because like cards have some properties that squids don't have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like friction aspects, and then like if the edges get really worn, then you can like lock things in place when it rubs up
Right.
against the edge. So not really structures so much. Mostly use them for one hand cuts.
Yeah, things like, well, just packet cuts in general is really where they shine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also a big fan of using squids for traveling because it's just really nice to be able to not pick up a lot of cards at once.
Yeah.
Or just being able to be more liberal with when I'm practicing on the subway, for example, and not just doing the safe stuff that is not going to end up with me picking up a bunch of cards on the floor, is really nice. And you know, there is a creative aspect that appeals to some people, but not everyone.
Yeah, I think they're fun. I mean, they're worth giving a shot for sure.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's when I actually got my hands on some squids, I was like, all right, cool. Now I know these are good.
Yeah.
I was mostly convinced.
It really like takes you using them to get on board with them.
Yeah, and it's understandable to be a bit hesitant at first because it is not a marginal amount of money to be spending. So it's understandable to be dubious at first. And there, I also think that, you know, for example, Baptiste would probably not use squids as effectively as someone else because they're a bit harder to fan with.
Probably not.
Especially giant fans, they just don't really pan out as well.
They pharaoh really well though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Making perfect pharaoh like every time.
Yeah, just about. And there goes that's. Anyways, uh, interesting question, which has a couple follow-up questions. So again, troublemaker, asking if you were to explore another genre of cardistry, which one would it be and why?
I don't want to say isolations, but I'm going to say isolations.
Why don't you want to say isolations?
Well, I think that's like kind of like the easy answer because it's a really trendy thing right now. But I honestly do really like them, especially because the choreography aspect is something that doesn't exist nearly as much in most other genres.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those where, you know, doing the move is something, but also how you move around the move is really important. Which is something that's interesting because even for packet cuts, I think that, you know, how you present it, you know, how you orient your body and stuff is really interesting, but it's a lot less obvious how important it is as for isolations. Because with isolations, there's less going on, so there's more attention to everything else. And yeah, so I mean, I think isolations are while kind of the obvious way to go. It's definitely understandable because it's also fairly new, and even, you know, where cardistry is fairly new, it's fairly new within something that's fairly new, and so there's still a lot of stuff to do and boxes to think outside of and stuff like that. So that makes sense. Yeah. And I think we're kind of running out of steam, so perhaps we can begin to end this. We've been going on for about 2 hours, slightly less, but it's defendable. It's no 5 hours, but
yeah.
But yeah, so Giz doing magic and cardistry has been asking about a 5-packet one-handed cuts that has apparently been submitted to your contest. I'm paraphrasing here. Do you know what this is a reference to, by any chance?
My contest, as
I think that means ICO.
Referring to ICO?
I assume so.
I don't know. I haven't gone through the videos yet.
Yeah, that
sounds like there are a lot.
Oh yeah, boy. And some pretty good people from what I glanced at. So I think it'll be an interesting one. Yeah, it's I forget how many there were last year. I think 87 is what comes to mind. So this is
double that.
Yeah. So it's impressive. But do they have the double section thing? The novice versus veterans sections? I haven't actually looked that much into ICO, at least this much. But I think it's all one category now, which does make a difference.
It would seem that way, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. But yeah, it's really cool that people are getting confident enough to join a competition. And you know, I think when I did ICO, my expectation would be to get in 2 rounds to lose 2 rounds in, and I was okay with that. And I think it didn't turn out that way, but it's a good mindset to get into, which is that, you know, if you think that you're going to go for 2 rounds, I guess you don't have the issue of trying to save moves for further rounds. And in that case, you just kind of go all out. And then when you keep going, you're like, ah, shit, I guess I had to come up with more stuff. And then it works out.
Yeah, I think joining a competition is pretty good for yourself because it forces you to get outside your comfort box a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a way to push yourself.
Yeah, and okay. Sorry, I just saw something. Yeah, and it's the particularly the pressure of having a deadline, I think, is really, really good. Because for all of my videos, I have the issue of getting 90% done through the video and being like, it still requires some work, but it's not quite interesting enough to keep going. And so then I leave it there for a while and then actually finish it and publish it, which is currently the state of one of my videos right now. It's in that 95% state, actually. But I'm going to say it's coming soon. It's not the big video that I've been advertising here and there. That's also, that's far from being 90% done. But that's more. But anyways, point being, having a deadline is really beneficial in that sense, forcing you to come up with material and, you know, put the effort that you really should be putting in every video, just in the videos because you want to keep going forward, is also really good, I think. So yeah, 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll leave it at that. So someone is asking, if you are relatively new to cardistry, do you recommend practicing in front of a camera, or I assume /mirror?
Not really. I mean, you should do it from time to time just to make sure that what you're doing looks good. But for some stuff, just to get the mechanics down, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where in the process of polishing, it's really good to have a mirror or like a camera to make sure that it looks good from the front. Because I also have come up with a couple moves that look really good from the back, and then from the front, it's just kind of boring because it's just it happens. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those habits which I wish I had more of, which was using kind of a camera or a mirror. So it's probably a good habit to get into. Kevin was talking about how he always practices, straight and looking into a mirror and something like that, which is probably a good thing. I don't think it's
definitely a more serious way to practice. I think for a lot of people, practice isn't something that's like premeditated. It's more just like messing around and working on something than actively trying to like make sure that something looks good for a camera or for other people.
Yeah, I guess given that, it's kind of Kevin's job to do cardistry, that does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to make a video, then yes, for sure, do it in front of a camera and or a mirror.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be making a video, you probably want to use a camera, just, from a logistics standpoint. But, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's mostly it. Guess was talking about a 5-packet one-handed card that was submitted to my contest, which ended a couple of weeks ago. Yes, I do remember that. I almost picked it, but it was like a 95% there cut, and it was really good. But I think I know I preferred the winner. So don't. I mean, I actually realized that I just don't like doing contests because you can't really pick a best. It's not really a fair fight. It's but yeah, it's what can I say? It was good. But on that note, any closing remarks?
Support Cardists by buying their products. Yeah, it's the big thing.
Yeah,
I think we touched on a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I think we we're pretty. Yep, that's we got through the whole creative thing, which is kind of the recurring theme around here. So yeah, I think we can call it here. So thanks again for coming along, especially on such a short notice. Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, thanks, chat, for being pretty good. Thanks, Troublemaker, for the questions. And have a good day, everyone.